everybody, what's going on, and welcome back to another video review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the FW3A. This is the latest flashlight from BLF or Budget Light Forum, so I figured I should get a review out sooner rather than later. For those of you who might not know what this flashlight is, this was a project that was started over 2 years ago, but didn't come to fruition until quite recently. To this effect, there were multiple delays, and the original lead of the project, Fritz, was superseded somewhere along the way. In fact, I'd all but forsaken this project as being perpetually delayed until several weeks ago when they suddenly announced they were going into production. So I got in my order ASAP from Neil's Gadgets, the sole vendor at the time, and a few weeks later, here we are. Background aside, let's talk specs. In terms of dimension, you're looking at 92.5 by 25.5 millimeters, and this equates to a very good size for most hands, and it's very hand-friendly. Currently, there's only a couple LED options in Cree XPL High, but I do believe they intend to eventually roll out a version with the SST20 LED for you high-cry lovers. And I wanted mine as fast as possible, so I went with the neutral white 5000 Kelvin option. And on the topic of LEDs, as you can see here, mine has one of the LEDs out. And it arrived dead upon arrival. So to his credit, Neil, the owner of Neil's Gadgets, has told me he's going to send a replacement head, although it definitely took some wheedling on my end to get a replacement going out. There's definitely a lot to like about this flashlight. Foremost, I've got to admit I was really impressed with the presentation of this package. As you can see, there's nothing fancy about it, but the package design is very clean and also aesthetically appealing to the eye. And these are manufactured under Lumentop, which is one of the mainstream flashlight manufacturers in China. And it's basically allowing them to bring the flashlight to the mass market. With respect to the FW3A itself, the first thing that I noticed is that they've clearly taken a lot of design cues from higher-end flashlights. The body here is reminiscent of an HDS flashlight with the pronounced head and pronounced tail. And then you also have your tapered body in the center. I'm going to posit that this is an improvement over the original design made on Fritz's lathe that had sharp cutouts for the head and the body. And the current design is one of the most ergonomically sound designs out there, and it facilitates a lot of natural grips in the hand. Secondly, as you can see here, they've chosen to implement a clip that looks really like a carbon copy of Prometheus Lights clips. Prometheus Lights is well known for engineering some of the best clips in the flashlight world. And the only distinctly different thing I can see on this clip is the addition of this hole at the base of the clip. And it's obviously of much lesser quality too, and I believe this clip is made out of stainless steel. Either way, it's definitely superior clip-wise to the MSRD4, the flashlight that the FW3A will inevitably be compared to. In essence, I very much appreciate that the FW3A has taken features generally seen on higher-end flashlights and applied them to the budget format. The next thing that I like about the FW3A is the size. This flashlight is undeniably compact for the 18650 battery it uses, and I'll pop it open here just so you guys have an idea of what an 18650 battery looks like. So this is an 18650 battery. And as you can see, this flashlight is not much bigger than the battery that houses it. And as a basis of comparison, there's a lot of 18350 and 16340 flashlights out there that are of similar size to the FW3A. And you gotta remember, the 18650 is about twice as large as these other batteries. And as a result of the battery, you're going to be getting a lot more capacity relative to, say, these other flashlights I have over here. Another cool feature of the FW3A is the integration of an e-switch. The biggest advantage of an e-switch is the user flexibility that it allows for. And the downside, on the other hand, of an e-switch is two parts. One being personal preference, as some people don't like the tactile feedback of an e-switch. As you can see, it's not quite like a clicky switch that you'll find on these flashlights. So a lot of people like this feedback. I personally do, and I'm not as big of a fan of e-switches. However, it does have its merits. And the other drawback of an e-switch is parasitic drain. That's not something that I can know at this time, however, I'm assuming that it's going to be mostly negligible. And relative to the MSR-D4, I appreciate that this e-switch is located on the tail of the flashlight rather than at the head with the D4. And this was also the correct choice given the bodily ergonomics of the flashlight. Finally, moving on to the user interface, I'll preface this by saying that I have a love-hate relationship with the firmware that the FW3A uses. The firmware is called Anduril, and it was designed by ToyKeeper. ToyKeeper has made big leaps with respect to firmware in the budget flashlight community, and Anduril really serves to exacerbate both the pros and cons of these leaps. Alright, so the FW3A operates predominantly using a ramping interface, and you do this by holding down the switch to increase the brightness, like so. So very, very simple. And then you release and then hold again to turn down the brightness. And it's always one click from on to turn off the flashlight. This aspect of the user interface is super intuitive and most people grasp it very quickly. The way ramping and the e-switch work in tandem is honestly nothing short of laudable, and I'm surprised that it hasn't been integrated on some higher-end flashlights. So 2 taps from off will take you to pseudo turbo, and this output is regulated. From there you can tap again twice for the FW3A's true max output, but this output isn't regulated and it will step down very quickly. Already I can tell this flashlight is very worn. So pseudo turbo and true turbo are unilateral of the mode memory that applies to the ramp levels. As you can see, it comes right back on at where I left the ramp level last time. Overall, I'd say this is a pretty good integration of outputs. But after this is where the user interface is going to fall apart, even for most flashlight geeks. It's 4 clicks from off to activate the lockouts, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see now, it only turns on moonlight. This is a nice feature, especially if you're in the dark and you still need a little bit of light. But it's 4 clicks from there to turn back on regular output. It's 5 clicks to activate momentary only, which I'm not going to do because you need to do a hard reset where you physically unscrew the flashlight head to reset it. And then you also have 6 clicks to get to muggle mode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And muggle mode, which is honestly a really apt term coined by ToyKeeper, effectively limits the output and user interface to just the ramping for non-flashlight geeks. So yes, very simple. These separate modes aside, there's also a cycle of blinkies and strobes that you can access with 2 taps and a hold. So 1, 2, and a slight hold. And that's going to be your candle mode. And then it's 2 taps every time to cycle the strobes and blinkies. Bike flasher, party strobe, tactical strobe, and lightning storm. So as sweet as lightning storm and candle are, tactical strobe is completely impractical in this cycle. When you want tactical strobe on a flashlight, you want it instantly, and you don't want to be playing Rubik's Cube with your flashlight. And as you guys saw there, it takes 2 taps and hold, and then it takes 2 more taps every single time to cycle through that series of outputs. This cycle aside, 3 solid taps is going to give you voltage check, temperature control, and a few other things. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 volts, 4.1 volts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then that's your nominal voltage. So 4.1 volts is how much voltage the battery currently has. That's pretty much a full battery for those of you who were wondering. My issue is that it's 3 taps versus 2 taps and a slight hold. And this nuance really serves to show how complicated Anduril is. And the reality is that most users, even most flashlight geeks, are not going to remember this and the aforementioned modes without a manual on hand 24/7. Out of the modes I've shown so far, these are just the main ones, and there's a lot of other modes and little things you can do. Without a doubt, this firmware is extremely flexible and it has a myriad of features, perhaps more than any other I've seen. However, it's ridiculously cluttered, and the ramping aspect aside, it screams lack of practical use or actual testing. Among the other things I dislike about this flashlight, the next thing I'm going to note is more of a consideration more than anything else. The flashlight is so light that when I first opened it up, I thought that Neil had forgotten to include the battery I purchased with it until I found it inside the flashlight itself. And while the flashlight being lightweight is a good thing for EDC, it also lacks thermal mass as a result. The MSR D4 that was sort of the predecessor to the FW3A was a bit chunkier and stockier, so you could get those high outputs from the quad emitters for a little bit longer. You're not going to be able to run the barn burner levels on this flashlight for very long, and the head will inevitably heat up very quickly. Of course, this is what the temperature limit is for, but it also bears saying that potential buyers should not buy this flashlight for the lumens and output. Yes, it is very bright, but it is also not very bright for very long. And like I said before, this thing is already getting very warm at the head. Now, a final thing to bear in mind is quality control. There's already a full support thread dedicated to issues with the FW3A, and it seems like there's been a lot of issues with the driver not being completely seated, among other things. And as I already pointed out, one of the LEDs on my flashlight turned up completely dead. I suspect the dead LED is a rare exception. However, holistically, there have been a sizable number of issues with the FW3A. This is actually pretty common with first production runs, so it might be prudent for most users to wait for future runs instead of pulling the trigger immediately. The main reason why I purchased mine so early is because of the discounted group buy price, and this is just one of those risks you take as a result of that. When I purchased the FW3A, I believe I paid around $36 with the group buy discount. At that price, even with the issues I've seen so far, I'd posit that the FW3A was a steal. For most buyers right now though, at the current MSRP of $50, I'm a lot more hard-pressed to recommend this flashlight. I'd probably wait until they offer the SST20 version because some of the kinks might be ironed out by then. Additionally, as I outlined earlier, output doesn't really matter much with a flashlight like this because of thermal constraints, so you might as well take the higher cry, or higher color rendering index. As always, I hope you guys found this review and my thoughts informative. I don't have the best relationship with budget flashlights. I actually sold my MSRD4, and I kind of looked down upon this flashlight before I had gotten it in my hands. But I was duly impressed by this one, and probably all the more so if all 3 LEDs have been working properly. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap this video up. Thanks for watching, and peace out.